Hi guys! Today I bring you a very special review that I was anticipating for a really long time. Today we are going to talk about a Spanish author that I read over the summer, but I couldn't do a review of until now. The book in question is actually Limón y Mora by Sonia Montiel Huerga. She is a friend of a very dear friend of mine, and I met her 2 years ago in a book fair. Chatting, we were chatting a little bit, but until this year, our friend in common, didn't allow me to enjoy one of her stories that she had. And oh boy, when I did, it was a magical ride. We are going to talk about Limón y Mora for a bit. But in case you don't know me, I am Clara, I'm the owner of the Ink Path, and this is the place where I talk about books in English and in Spanish. Obviously, you're in a review in English, but I discovered Sonia thanks to a blogger friend of mine who is able to mix psychology, books, and TV shows in a very, very delightful way. That is called Christine. I will leave all the details to her blog if you want to pop by. She writes it in Spanish, but I think you will be able to manage. So, ready for a trip to a place where vampires are real? Yeah? Let's go. In Limón y Mora, we explore our contemporary world, but in this world, vampires and humans coexist, either because they have been bitten or because the humans decided to go through almost a surgical procedure to become vampires. Because being a vampire in this contemporary kind of different world, the vampires have some privileges that the human don't have. So in theory, they can coexist because there's food for the vampires, so they don't have to actually hunt. But there are also people who enjoy hunting, and they consider humans their own prey to kill, actually. So at the beginning of the story, we meet with two humans, Fermin and Cosme, who dislike vampires. One, for example, has his two parents, his mom and dad, transform into vampires because they choose to. So they went to this kind of hospital to do the transformation and so on. But he doesn't like vampires, because of a past event with an ex-girlfriend of his, who decided to go and run away with a vampire. So the idea of this story starts from this group of friends, and they have also a common friend called Christina, who wants to be a vampire, and the three of them encounter the same vampire called Limón in Spanish, and he is trying to run away from things that happened in his past, that he provoked in his past. All the four characters have to deal with a set of kind of dark creatures, set of lethal creatures who come to this town to hunt. Basically, they are vampires and they want to hunt. So this kind of vicious enemies that they have encountered, they are trying to mess around, and they have this kind of vengeance to fulfill against Lemon, so they try to hurt him in any way possible. So the three humans and the vampire have to stop these kind of lethal vampires that they are hunting down everyone they can. The idea of this book is what price would you be able to pay in order to become immortal, in order to become a vampire? And I love it. I love this kind of theory of what makes you human and what makes you a monster, or in this case, immortal being. And I love how the author, how Sonia created this society that is almost like ours, but you can see this kind of supermarket for vampires and humans alike, or nocturnal school, because the majority of the teenagers are not vampires, so they go to a nocturnal session at the high school. I love this kind of twist in our own society to mold it to this new creature that is coexisting with the humans. I love how the characters are so well developed and so well drawn, in the sense that you read a few chapters, and I felt as if the characters were real. In fact, Christina was the closest to me that I've been in a while. Christina is my representation, or a teenage representation of me at some points. And I love that. I love how realistic they are, even though they are exposed to these kind of fantastical creatures that we know that in our reality they don't exist. Even what I love the most about the human part of all the characters, included the vampires, is that when they have to work together to stop this kind of lethal itinerant vampires, they have to work together. And even though they don't get along, because Fermin and Cosme hate vampires, but they encounter Lemon and they have to work, in the end they have to work with him because things happen. They have to put aside the hate that they feel for each other, even though they don't know each other. And it's really interesting to see their dynamic, and for example how Christina is like the middle ground for everyone to meet. And I love that. I love the dynamic between the four characters. I also love the fact that when they work together, you could see, when they are together in the same room, the four of them, you could see the differences between the humans and Lemon the vampire, because Lemon has a lot of secrets and they normally unfold throughout the story, but when they are talking, the four of them, you could actually see Lemon tiredness, or Lemon is sad. It's a very sad and bitter character at the beginning of the story, because he has been living a long time, for a really long time, and that doesn't allow him to run away from his past. The only thing that it does is perpetuating the past there. So the idea of being a vampire as a escapism to the human problems is not real. And I love how when they talk, for example when Christina talks to Lemon the majority of the time, you could see the differences between her, who is a teenager or a really really young adult person around 20s, and how he is more mature, even though I think Christina's a teenager and Lemon is older obviously, but physically very similar to her. However, when they talk, you could actually see the wise aspect of Lemon coming through, while Christina is very impulsive and very driven by the heart, while Lemon learned a long time ago that he shouldn't be completely just following what his heart tells. And I love that dynamic between two, because it's very easy to feel Lemon background and understand why he is how he is, and why he tries to be cool about it, how he tries to be cold with the people, because he knows that at the end we are all mortal, so they are going to vanish and he's going to be alone. I think that I started this story thinking that this was going to be a vampire story, so I already had a few encounters with vampires in the past. I've read Dracula, I've read, of course, the Twilight Saga. I've read I don't know how you say it, the Midnight Academy. I'm not sure, the Claudia Gray books. I've read a few vampire stories, and there was a boom while ago during the early yes, during the 2000 era we had a boom of vampires. But what I love the most is that these ones, these vampires in particular, they are very grounded. They are very even though they have fantastical abilities and they use it, they are more close to the original vampire, or to the Bram Stoker Dracula version of the vampire, than the flashing or the supernatural vampire that we have been already exposed in the past 10 years. And I love that, because that leaves I'm not talking about any vampire in particular, although this could be applied to Lemon. We are actually discussing how a person who has been living for years already, about ages, you have seen the world transform, and yet you are paused in the same situation over and over again, because you are not aging, you are not letting go, you are not able to vanish with the rest of the world. I love the kind of rhetorical, philosophical elements that, even though they are not exposed in the story, you could actually feel it, like, there. If I have to be sincere, there's an element of the story that I didn't like, which is that all the events, especially in the second half of the book, happen really, really fast. The first part of the book is the presentation of the characters, the presentation of the society, and the presentation of the different social structures, depending on what you are, if you are a human or if you are a vampire. But the second half is the part of the story where, as all the characters have already interact and have already bonded or not bonded, you are left to develop either feelings, conflicts, whatever it is. And I have the feeling that the events that lead to the end of the story happen really, really fast. Maybe it's just me that I needed more material because I didn't want to let my babies go. But other than that, I love the story, and I felt like I would probably pick up something from Sonia later on in the year. Well, this is it. This is what I love the most about Limón and Mora, and I hope you also like it too. I really hope that you enjoy the review, and I like to think that if you have an intermediate level of Spanish, you will be able to pick it up. And if you have read any books with vampires that you feel that go a little bit off the grid, that are a little bit different from what we have already read, let me your recommendation down below, okay? See you next week. Bye!